huge problem in the life of South Africans. We've got 27% of our people unemployed right now, are young. Inequality continues to be the worst in the world in terms of the Gini coefficient measurements, and poverty is still rife. And quite a number of these things are a legacy of our past, legacy of the past system of apartheid. We don't want to continue loading a lot of blame on that, but that's the reality that we are dealing with. We're dealing with a system that was deliberately broken, and an economy which was also deliberately broken in the sense that our economy never operated on all its cylinders. It was crafted to operate in a way where it just benefited a minority population. And with freedom and democracy, the need to address the interests of all the people of South Africa came to the fore. And that is what we are now dealing with, because we're dealing with, it's almost like having, you know, your best Mercedes-Benz, but with a very small mini minor engine. So you've got to make this vehicle function. So that is the task that we have as a government and as a country. And along this journey, we've got to correct what has happened in the last 9 years. We've got to put things right, correct governance processes, rid our country of corruption, and energize everyone to start looking in the same direction. And that is why for us it's been important to align government, labor, and business. And in a way, I mean, in terms of just looking at building this compact, we've also learned some lessons from Germany. The way your co-determination system works, where labor, and government, and business work together, has been a window for us to look through and say, there is something that we can learn. So we're learning that. One of the challenges, of course, that we face is a skills deficit. There's a huge skills deficit in our country. And there as well, Germany can teach us a lot of lessons in the way that you've gone about skilling your people, doing the theoretical training and the practical, mixing the two, and building a very good industrial class of people who are able to contribute effectively to the economy of your country. And in the course of this, of course, we've had to look at how we manage the economy, how from a fiscal point of view, we become more prudent, more disciplined. But all in all, the South African sort of general position is that there's a lot that is still going for South Africa, despite the challenges that we face. We still remain a country that is very strong from an industrial base point of view, more than any other country on the continent. The manufacturing base is still there, as many of your companies who are invested in South Africa can attest to. And we believe that we still are a very good destination for investments. This was proven to us more abundantly just over a week ago, just this past few days. We held an investment conference which we had thought would attract possibly about 400 people. It went way beyond 1,100. And this was in aid of us trying to raise $100 billion of investment over the next 5 years. We took the view that one of the things that would add growth to our economy would be an investment drive, that we should attract investment into our economy For a number of reasons, even South African companies had, slowed down on their investment thrust in the country. And foreign direct investment had also started tapering off a little bit. And we felt that we needed to boost investment by putting a target of $100 billion over 5 years. And so this was the first conference, an inaugural conference really, to mobilize investment and to bring investors together into South Africa. And they came in their large numbers, which was testimony to the fact that South Africa can still demonstrate that it is an investment destination. And may I say that we were able to get commitments from a number of companies, both local and external, both existing and new, and we managed to get companies to commit up to $20 billion, just vocally saying this is what we commit. And we're pleased to say that 60 billion rand of that came from German companies. A number of German companies declared that they are pleased with the investment climate that we are generating improving in South Africa, and they are prepared to invest more. So that for us was most pleasing and showed the level of confidence that companies have demonstrated or are demonstrating in South Africa. This is despite some of the challenges that people have raised with us, which we are addressing. They have raised a number of issues, and as I said, what we've been seeking to do is to build a compact and cooperate with all these what we call social partners. They had raised with us that the number of issues that still need to be addressed in South Africa to improve the investment climate had to do with, for instance, the mining charter, where there was policy uncertainty, and we addressed that. Telecommunications spectrum, we have addressed that. The visa challenge, which had come to the fore, we also addressed that. And just the bureaucracy in terms of getting a business started and going and all that, we've addressed that. And so we are addressing a number of issues and challenges that have been raised by business and indeed by labor. Recently, we were also able to hold a job summit. A job summit is a typical South African phenomenon where, as people are facing great challenges with unemployment, we decide that let's get together and talk about how we can create jobs. And it's very unique. I haven't heard of it in any other place in the world where business and labor sit together with government and communities and say, okay, let's see how we can create jobs. And so we got together. It was what was called a presidential job summit. So I brought them all together in one room. And I said to them, stop fighting. We cannot fight over jobs. Let's find a way of cooperating. And they all got together and came up with 70 interventions that we can all embark upon to create jobs. So it's a uniquely South African phenomenon, and a number of countries that have heard about this, they want us to export it. So if you want us to export something that's unique, we can export this to you. So we got together and have come up with a framework of how we can improve the job creation climate. So that is adding up to building this broad compact and create a better understanding between all the key social partners, business, labor, communities, and government, with a view of getting people to work together to address common problems. And I believe that that's working. And what it also does is that we're beginning to listen to one another rather than talk past each other. So people are now able to sit down, look at common problems, to listen to one another. One of the other things that we also did recently was sparked off by negative growth in the past 2 quarters in our economy, which demanded or required that government should respond. And we came forward with what we call a stimulus economic recovery package, which addresses a number of urgent issues that need to be addressed so that we can inject further growth into the economy. And it largely had to do with how we reprioritize our current budget. But the most important part was the establishment of an infrastructure fund. Infrastructure was the real sort of, if you like, flywheel that got our economy to show levels of growth in the past. And with time, we started weakening our involvement with that. So we're now seeking to boost infrastructure build and also improve the maintenance culture. That once you have infrastructure, maintain that infrastructure, and where there is a need, build new infrastructure. And this for us is important, particularly also as we deal with the past, because in the past, the apartheid government concentrated more on providing good infrastructure in places where white people lived. So our approach is that the whole country belongs to all South Africans. We need to focus on the entire country and improve infrastructure for all the people. So the backlog is quite huge in all parts of the country. We've got 9 provinces, as you may well know. So we're focusing on improving infrastructure, roads, dams, you name it, everything that needs to be done to give our people a better life. And our key objective really in the end is, as we grow the economy, we want to deliver a better life to the people of South Africa. We want the government to function well. We want to create a very good climate for business to operate, for people to come and invest and make good money. And that is the general approach that we have. And it's an approach which we think works. We saw how people responded very warmly to this type of approach, which we articulated at our conference, that that's precisely what we're seeking to do. We also have had occasion to deal with very difficult issues such as the land question. As you well know, you might know that land is an important asset for people in any country. People want to know that they have an asset that they can utilize. Now, the sad history of our country is that by law, by practice, by convention, the land was only made available to a minority. And the majority of our people were just given 13% of the whole land of South Africa. And that was bound to create problems. And it created problems in the past. The very party that I lead was formed to bring back the land to the majority of our people. And with time, this has remained a wound that needed to be healed. And over time, we found that this wound is not healing. It needs to be attended to. So we decided that we're now going to address it and address it in a way that the healing process will be quicker. So we decided that we will open up a discussion and a debate throughout the country. Now, that is the debate that is taking place in the country through a parliamentary process. Decided that let's get South Africans participating in discussing the land question. which I have called the original sin. When colonialism started in our country, many people committed many sins, but the real original sin was land. You can forget what the Bible says about the original sin, but this for us was the, was the real sin. So the discussion has been going on, and it's been a wonderful discussion, because for the first time in the history of our country, South Africans have become involved. Well, I think this is the second time. The first time was when we drafted the Constitution. We had South Africans talking about the type of South Africa they want, the type of constitution they want. So we went through the length and the breadth of the country and got South Africans talking about their future, their constitution. And they spoke largely about human rights, they spoke about democracy, they spoke about many other things. And this time round, we've engaged South Africans in talking about the important asset of land, which is a very big contributory factor to the structure of our economy. So they've been discussing this, and the interesting part is that wonderful ideas have been coming to the table because people are talking. And of course, the ideas have been varied. Some have said, no, don't do anything. Some have said, no, do everything about the land. And some have been in the middle. And it's been wonderful because everybody has been involved. But the general approach that is coming through is that we've got to address this together. It should not be one section of the community that addresses this to the exclusion of all others. And they are very true to what our forebears said when they said, South Africa belongs to all the people who live in it. And those who live in it are, the various people in South Africa, black and white and so on. So it belongs to all of us. So therefore it means that the answer that we've got to come up with must be an inclusive answer that includes everyone, and that in the end will largely benefit everyone. May not lead to everybody's benefit, but it must benefit the majority. And our approach has been that it is the people who must benefit. Should not be a few elite individuals who must benefit from this. So, and the second thing is that it must be done in terms of the law. There must be no land grab. There must be adherence to the rule of law, and it must be done within the broad framework of our Constitution. And that is the approach that we are taking to this. I appointed a team of advisors, which is very, very mixed. Mixed in the sense that it's got landowners, people who don't have land, academics, lawyers, and constitutional lawyers and all that. So all of them are now involved in the process of coming up with a construct that can take our country forward. The Parliament is also discussing this matter. So all these efforts are going to lead to what I believe will be a very, very good and positive, and where all South Africans will feel that the matter has been properly addressed. I was asked recently as I opened a train making factory by the investors. One of the key investors were French and local investors, and they said, is our factory safe? Will it be taken away? And I said, it will never happen in South Africa. Your factory is safe, your investment is safe, and that's what we want to give people assurance of, that we are going to handle the land question in the best possible way that is going to lead to the growth of our economy, which is going to lead to increased agricultural production, but which is also going to enable our people to find places to build their own houses and to have a better life. So the approach is great benefit for South Africans as a whole, without looking at any specific, if you like, racial group. So we're dealing with difficult issues, but we're also coming up with all-inclusive answers. Answers and solutions that will help to build and bind the nation together. Because as president, I'm concerned about just the social cohesion and nation building. Like Nelson Mandela was, he was concerned about how to build a South African nation from the divisions that had existed in the past. So that is the path that we are proceeding on, giving South Africans a better life, growing our economy, doing everything in line with a value system that is clearly set out in our Constitution, a value system which Nelson Mandela subscribed to. So with that, we believe that we are on a winning ticket. And in the end, as I conclude, what we need are partners who see South Africa as a very good investment destination. Already there are quite a number of companies, almost 600 German companies are in South Africa, invested, their investments are safe, and where there are problems and challenges, we're prepared to address them, sit down and talk about them, because our objective is the companies must succeed and they must contribute to growing the economy. So with that, I think we've got a good equation, wonderful equation that can lead to progress for all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you for, I think, these promising remarks. And if you outline the big base of the German companies that are already active in South Africa, it's always one of my favorite ideas to use this, and you mentioned that as a base to also move into other African and to support other countries where we are not that active. But looking what you outlined, and if you consider that we have this broad manufacturing base, it is really from German perspective, we have this what we call social partnership. It's how we deal unions and how we deal with the owners. And it's not that we do not have conflicts, but that we are always looking for solutions, and that we are pretty successful to do that. And the other part from your many remarks was the dual educational system that we have in Germany, and that's specifically important for the young people, where you mentioned that you have the highest unemployment rate there. And what we try in Germany is really to have specific educational programs for all types of qualifications, and also the lower qualified people that we find they're good solutions to bring them into a working process. And I think we can, as German business, support you very much for that. One of our
Okay, sorry, we just had to cut away from what's happening in Germany.
On a regular basis, many others in this room too. And maybe just a few remarks to the company that I represent. I think during the investment conference you met our managing director, Mr. Paparet.
Oh, yes.
And he told me that he told
that's
you
right.
that.
He spoke to me, he told me I'm going to meet you.
Yes. And he immediately reported this to me.
Yes.
And so we are in South Africa since 1994. We have today like 800 employees. We have 250 in manufacturing, 330 in 35 dialysis centers where we treat 1,200 dialysis patients. And we are right now in a program to build another manufacturing unit with an investment of 300 million rand. And that's supposed to be additional jobs of about 150 employees. So we like to be in South Africa. During my first period being in the board of the company. We are family-owned. We are 63,000 people, 7 billion euros in the medical device business. And during my first years in the board, it was my obligation to be somehow the contact person to our company in South Africa. So I visited regularly, specifically Johannesburg. And now it's you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah, my name is Christiane Leibach. I'm the chairwoman of DG, and DG is part of the KfW group, which probably tells you something.
That's
KfW is a large German development bank, and both KfW as well as DG, we have been involved in South Africa for long, long years, and the government, I think, in a lot of ways and programs in infrastructure and other parts. And we as DG, we are a subsidiary of KfW, and we only work with the private sector. That's why I'm representing the group today, because we talk in business all day today. And we do that in two ways. We support German corporates, in particular from the German Mittelstand, if they like to invest in foreign countries, in particular like in Africa and South Africa. But we work as well with local entrepreneurs a lot. And as we described this, it's really our emphasis to work with local entrepreneurs who are, through investments and through the finance we provide, are able to create new jobs and good jobs and for skilled workers. And so that is always one of our really focus we really have, as well as infrastructure. And I think there's a lot of need as well, particularly on the energy side. So we are very much looking forward for new emphasis in new energy and energizing again what South Africa has to provide, and looking forward to work with you, the government and the private sector in many ways.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
My name is Christoph Kangis. I'm the CEO of the German African Business Association. We have some 500 German companies in our roster, which are engaged all over the African continent, so in all 54 African countries. But of course, South Africa is by far the most important business and investment and trade destination on the African continent. I think what we can contribute is to motivate even more small and medium-sized companies in Germany to engage in South Africa. They are the backbone of our industry, as well of the internationalized industry. These companies are, most of them are family-owned. They are very sensitive about investment security. They want to trust in political predictability, and they want to be sure that their investments are guaranteed and that they can repatriate their money if necessary and wanted. These are, I think, the main issues and the main concerns which we have to address, and we are very thankful that we had the opportunity to discuss it very closely with your embassy here in Berlin, with Ambassador Cisani, who is doing a great job here in Germany.
Is he really doing a great job?
No, but very, very seriously, he is the number one, not only in size of the economy, but as well in the performance here in Berlin. No doubt about that.
I've been hearing rumors about that.
And we want to have it. And we want to have him with us as long as possible.
Okay. No, that's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Marcus Hill. I am the president for the African continent of the Bosch Group. So I represent all the aspects: automotive industry, consumer goods, and building and energy technology. I don't want to talk too much about Bosch in South Africa. I've also been present last Friday, and we announced an investment. We are roughly 2% of the jobs that you mentioned that German companies create in Africa directly.
Yeah.
And as long as the investment climate will continue to improve, for us, South Africa will also stay an investment destination. I just wanted to take this opportunity to ask you for two requests for help. One thing is, and I mentioned it also last week to DTI and to Minister Pandor, that is two of my pet projects. The one thing is, we were just talking about vocational schools. I am the chairman of the Training and Education Committee of the German Chamber of Commerce in Southern Africa. And whenever I discussed also with Sabine from Siemens, with Nissan, with everyone, we said that we have workers, which are, let's say, shop floor workers, and we have engineers. There's no issue to find them. But we are just talking about the German Facharbeiter, so the German trained vocational school 3.5 years.
Yes.
So I said, Procter & Gamble is online, Siemens would take, we are taking. So we have all the companies lined up. We want to do the Lighthouse project for South Africa, maybe even Southern Africa.